There's a chance you might have seen this picture of a 4,500-year-old crystal dagger, looking, let's face it, like something out of a fantasy RPG. It's a magnificent piece of workmanship, blade napped from raw crystal, hilts carved of ivory and decorated in pearl, literally one of a kind. But the story of where it was found is still more fascinating, and, in my opinion, one of the most undertold stories of prehistory. This is the story of Valencina de la Concepción. We begin in the late 4th millennium BC. In Mesopotamia, it is the dawn of civilization as the world's first urban city-states consolidate and vie for influence. The story of Samaria has been told often enough, but times are changing in Europe too. Here, it is the Copper Age, a time of new monumental traditions, increasingly complex social systems, and, in a few regions, megasites, places which aren't exactly urban, but remain far larger and more complex than villages, frequently matching or even exceeding the scale of the cities in Mesopotamia. You might have heard of the Cucuteni-Trypillia in Eastern Europe, and if not, Dan Davis has put together a pretty good introduction, link in the description. Iberia is another centre where these sorts of megasites developed. Los Miares is the classic example, a 5-hectare fortified settlement host to stone architecture, specialised crafts, and a cemetery of megalithic tombs. There are bigger megasites. Matriarchy is the second largest in Iberia at 113 hectares, though there aren't many sources on it available in English. And then there is Valencina de la Concepción, which sprawls across an incredible 450 hectares. That doesn't just make it by far the largest megasite in Iberia, that makes it one of the largest sites in all of Europe. Yet, for all its tremendous scale, there's very little evidence for anyone actually living here. No walls, no residences, no domestic features at all other than a few hearths and broken grinding stones. We have finely made stone tools, but no evidence for production on site. Animal bones, but only the meatiest parts, probably brought in for feasting. Current excavations suggest an estimated 40,000 structures, but what we've found so far consists only of pits and tombs. Valencina wasn't a settlement, it was an acropolis. And by the looks of things, it was a very influential one too. The burials at Valencina come in all shapes and sizes. Some of its pits are small and simple, others are large and complex enough that they've been described as artificial caves. A few of its megalithic tombs, like La Pastora, reach truly monumental sizes, up to 43 metres in length. As I said, we have no evidence for stone napping on site, but there was a sophisticated crafts industry working in far more exotic materials. Copper, gold, amber, ivory, rock crystal, and ostrich eggshell. Most of these are goods that could only have been obtained through long-distance trade routes, and the quality of the workmanship is phenomenal. So, we have monumental tombs and lavish grave goods within them, but who was buried in them? Well, that's where it gets even more interesting. In the large chamber at the Montelirio Tholos, we find 20 bodies, 15 identifiable as women, 5 undetermined. All were adults and all showed high levels of mercury in their bones, suggesting intense exposure to cinnabar, a bright red pigment that was pretty popular and also pretty toxic. They were buried with the sorts of sumptuous materials I described earlier, and some of them were dressed in garments made out of thousands of shell beads. Originally, it was suggested that these might represent the harem of some powerful Copper Age man, but we haven't found such a man yet. 2 or 3 generations earlier, the so-called Ivory Prince was buried in similar circumstances nearby. I say so-called because recently peptide analysis has revealed that this individual was likely a woman too. She also seems to show intense cinnabar exposure, and was buried on her own with an array of lavish and prestigious goods, including ceramic plates with traces of wine and cannabis, a carved tusk from an Asian elephant, and the one-of-a-kind crystal dagger I showed at the beginning of this video. She has the richest burial in all of Copper Age Iberia, and no men have yet been found with anything close to the same level of wealth or grandeur in their funerary arrangements. So, who were these women? probably not a stratified elite. Despite these monumental burials, we don't see evidence for that sort of system in any of this period's domestic architecture, and it's telling that all of them were grown adults. No grave goods for unqualified infants in Valencina. What's being suggested is that these were religious specialists, people who drew their status not from birth, but from skill, charisma, and personal achievement. And whether or not they lived in a matriarchy, this remains a system where women were able to achieve high-ranking positions of wealth and power, positions we have yet to see occupied by any men. Valencina de la Concepción would not last forever. After a millennium of occupation, it, like many of the Iberian megasites, was abandoned in the late 3rd millennium BC, as the social system it was built around collapsed. But to this day, it remains a fascinating place, giving us a glimpse into the development and unique character of social complexity in Iberia 5,000 years ago.
And that concludes the story of Valencina de la Concepción, a site that, in my opinion at least, should be way more well known than it currently is. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, don't hesitate to leave a like, comment, and a subscribe for the algorithm gods. And of course, if you spotted any problems or inaccuracies, don't hesitate to let me know. Hope you have a lovely day.